White captain kicks black billionaire off plane, regrets it 2 minutes later. As the story begins, tensions rise when the captain insists on removing the billionaire from the plane. Witness the reactions of fellow passengers who are caught in a whirlwind of disbelief and confusion. The decision seems to be final, but what happens next is both surprising and gross and enlightening. Tell us whether you find great excitement in this narrative. Press 1. If the video delighted you, press 0. Otherwise, not. Your comments really motivate me to compile more inspiring and significant narratives. Stay tuned as we dive into the details of this gripping story, showcasing how one woman's determination became a beacon of hope for countless others. Sophia Carter is not your average traveler. As the founder and CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire, she's earned her place as one of the most influential black entrepreneurs in the world. Her story is one of persistence, innovation, and breaking barriers in industries traditionally dominated by others. Despite her immense success, Sophia has always carried herself with humility and grace, navigating the world with a quiet but undeniable confidence. Closing out. But even with all her accomplishments, Sophia isn't immune to prejudice. Throughout her career, she's faced subtle and overt discrimination, yet she's always handled these challenges with poise. However, what happened on a seemingly ordinary flight home pushed her patience and composure to the limit. After wrapping up an exhausting business trip, Sophia arrived at the gate, ready to board her first-class seat. Dressed elegantly but understated, she handed her boarding pass to the gate agent with a polite smile. The agent, after scanning the ticket, hesitated. "Ma'am, there seems to be a mix-up," the agent said, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "You'll need to step aside for a moment." Sophia, puzzled, asked for clarification. "My seat is confirmed. It's right here on my ticket." Before she could get a clear answer, Captain Jack Turner appeared. With his crisp uniform and stern demeanor, he approached the situation with visible irritation. "This seat is not yours," he said dismissively, barely looking at Sophia's boarding pass. "Aye." Sophia remained calm but firm, explaining that she had reserved and paid for the first-class seat. Turner, however, seemed uninterested in her explanation. "You need to move, now," he said coldly, signaling that the conversation was over. Determined to stand her ground, Sophia proceeded to her assigned seat. As she sat down, Captain Turner followed her onto the plane, his frustration escalating. "Ma'am, you're causing a disruption," he barked, his voice loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Sophia, maintaining her composure, replied, "I'm simply sitting in the seat I paid for. There's no disruption here." Turner's face hardened. "If you don't leave this seat willingly, I'll have you removed." When Sophia refused to comply, Turner's temper boiled over. In a shocking display of aggression, he physically shoved her shoulder, forcing her out of the seat. Sophia stumbled, clutching the armrest to steady herself, her eyes wide with disbelief. Gasps rippled through the cabin as passengers watched the scene unfold. Some exchanged whispers, others looked away, avoiding eye contact. But no one stepped in to help. As Sophia struggled to process what had just happened, 2 security officers entered the plane. "Ma'am, you'll need to leave the aircraft," one of them said, her tone professional but unyielding. Sophia's voice trembled, but she stood her ground. "I've done nothing wrong. I'm not leaving my seat." Despite her protest, the officers escorted her off the plane. The humiliation was palpable. As she walked down the aisle, she could feel the eyes of the passengers on her, some filled with sympathy, others with silent judgment. Standing on the tarmac, alone and overwhelmed, Sophia felt the sting of both physical pain and emotional betrayal. She had worked tirelessly to earn her place in spaces like first-class cabins, yet here she was, being treated as if she didn't belong. Back inside the airport, Sophia found herself in a quiet corner, trying to make sense of the ordeal. Her mind raced with questions. Was it her race, her gender, or was it simply a gross abuse of power? The silence of the passengers weighed on her as much as the captain's aggression. This wasn't just about being forced out of a seat. It was a blatant act of discrimination and humiliation. And as Sophia composed herself, one thing became clear. She wasn't going to let this injustice go unanswered. Standing in the quiet corner of the bustling airport terminal, Sophia Carter felt the weight of the humiliation settle in. Her shoulder throbbed from the captain's shove, but the physical pain paled in comparison to the emotional sting. She had spent years building a name for herself, breaking barriers as a black woman in tech, yet in this moment, she was made to feel powerless and out of place. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking her thoughts. The name on the screen brought a moment of hesitation. Charles Carter, her father and a renowned black businessman. Sophia knew that Charles, a man who had fought against systemic barriers throughout his career, would never tolerate such blatant injustice. Bless him. With a deep breath, she answered. "Daddy, something happened," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. She recounted the events, the confrontation, the aggression, and the silence of the passengers. Charles listened intently, his voice calm but firm when he replied, "You don't have to fight this alone, Sophia. This isn't just about you, it's about what's right. Let's handle this together." Sophia's shock began to give way to resolve. This wasn't just about reclaiming her dignity, it was about challenging a system that allowed this kind of treatment. She resolved to fight, not only for herself, but for every person who had been silenced by systemic racism and discrimination. Charles Carter wasn't just a successful businessman, he was a force of nature. Having risen from humble beginnings to become one of the most influential black entrepreneurs in the country, Charles had long been an advocate for racial equity and justice. When he heard what had happened to his daughter, he sprang into action. His first call was to his legal team, instructing them to gather every piece of evidence available. Witness testimonies, flight manifests, and surveillance footage were all critical. "We need to make this undeniable," he told them. Next, he reached out to key allies in public relations and social justice organizations. Charles understood that this wasn't just a legal battle, it was a fight for public perception. "If we stay quiet, they'll bury this," he said to Sophia. "We have to shine a light on what happened." Charles's influence extended beyond the courtroom. He used his network to amplify Sophia's voice, ensuring that her story reached people who could help create change. Initially, the airline dismissed the incident as a misunderstanding. Their first statement was vague, offering a general apology for any inconvenience caused to passengers. It was clear they were trying to minimize the fallout. But Charles and Sophia weren't about to let the issue be swept under the rug. As they gathered evidence, the story began to gain traction. Sophia's legal team filed formal complaints against both the airline and Captain Jack Turner for racial discrimination and assault. Social media became a powerful tool. Sophia's story, shared through her network, quickly went viral. Videos taken by passengers on the flight surfaced, showing the captain's aggressive behavior and Sophia's calm resistance. The airline's PR team scrambled to contain the situation. Executives held emergency meetings, aware that this was no longer just a passenger complaint, it was a full-blown crisis. As Sophia's story spread, hashtags like "Justice for Sophia" and "Racial Discrimination in Skies" began trending on social media. People from all walks of life rallied behind her, sharing their own experiences of discrimination and calling for accountability. High-profitable figures including activists, celebrities, and business leaders voiced their support for Sophia. Statements like, "This isn't just about a seat, it's about systemic racism," and "We stand with Sophia," echoed across platforms. Public pressure mounted on the airline, boycotts were organized, and customers demanded transparency and accountability. The airline's stock took a noticeable hit as investors began pulling out, worried about the reputational damage. The story also sparked broader conversations about racism in industries like aviation, where authority and privilege often go unchecked. Sophia's calm yet firm resistance became a symbol of resilience, and her story inspired others to speak out. Sophia, with the support of her father, recognized the significance of what was happening. "This isn't just about me," she told her legal team. "This is about creating lasting change. We need to address the systemic issues that allow people like Captain Turner to act with impunity." The Carters' fight was no longer just a personal battle. It had become a movement. Charles worked tirelessly behind the scenes, coordinating with advocacy groups to push for stricter anti-discrimination policies in the airline industry. Sophia, meanwhile, used her platform to elevate marginalized voices. She gave interviews, attended rallies, and partnered with organizations focused on racial justice. "No one should have to go through what I did," she said in a televised appearance. "And together, we can make sure no one ever does again." And on mass protests, whenever the airline, now facing lawsuits, public backlash, and a PR disaster, was forced to act. Executives issued a public apology to Sophia and announced an internal investigation. But for Sophia and Charles, this was just the beginning. The fight for accountability and systemic change had only just begun. Sophia's courage and determination transformed a moment of injustice into a powerful catalyst for change. Her story wasn't just about reclaiming her dignity. It was about challenging a system and inspiring others to stand up against discrimination. As the public rallied behind her, one thing became clear: Sophia's fight was more than personal. It was a movement for justice and equality. Inevitably, Sophia Carter knew the fight wasn't just about her dignity, it was about setting a precedent. With her father, Charles Carter, by her side, she assembled a team of top-tier legal experts led by Lisa Morgan, a renowned civil rights attorney. The legal team's strategy was clear: hold Captain Jack Turner and the airline accountable for their actions. They filed charges of racial discrimination and assault against the captain and a civil suit against the airline for failing to uphold their responsibilities to a paying customer. Key evidence became the cornerstone of their case. Surveillance footage captured Turner shoving Sophia out of her seat. Passenger testimonies corroborated Sophia's account, describing Turner's dismissive and aggressive behavior. Sophia's first-class ticket and reservation records disproved any claims of a seat mix-up. Lisa Morgan's legal strategy aimed not just to win the case, but to highlight the systemic issues that allowed such an incident to occur. "This isn't just about one man's actions," Morgan stated. "It's about a system that allows discrimination to persist unchecked." The courtroom was packed on the day of the trial. Media outlets, activists, and curious onlookers filled the seats, all eager to witness a case that had captured national attention. Sophia sat poised and composed as she took the stand. Her testimony was powerful and heartfelt, recounting the humiliation and pain she felt as she was physically removed from her seat. "It wasn't just about the seat," she said. "It was about being told, in front of a plane full of people, that I didn't belong, that I was less than." Her words resonated deeply, and the courtroom fell silent as she described the shock of seeing the passengers remain silent and the captain's aggression. Captain Turner's defense team, led by Richard Holt, attempted to frame the incident as a misunderstanding. Holt argued that Turner had followed standard protocol to resolve a seating dispute and claimed there was no evidence of racial bias. But Lisa Morgan quickly dismantled their argument. Cheerer, she presented the surveillance footage showing Turner's physical aggression. Witnesses testified that Turner dismissed Sophia's valid boarding pass without proper inspection. Morgan highlighted Turner's tone and behavior, which were unnecessarily hostile and dismissive. Dismissiveness. "This was not a misunderstanding," Morgan asserted. "This was a deliberate act of discrimination, rooted in the belief that Sophia Carter did not belong in first class." The defense faltered further when cross-examinations revealed inconsistencies in Turner's account. His claim of maintaining order didn't align with the footage, which showed Sophia calmly explaining her position before being forcibly removed. After days of intense deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. The courtroom was tense as the judge read the decision. "We find Captain Jack Turner guilty of racial discrimination and assault." Sophia's breath caught as a wave of emotion washed over her. For the first time since the incident, she felt a sense of vindication. The judge continued, delivering Turner's sentence: 12 months in prison for assault, permanent ban from employment in the aviation industry. The airline also faced significant consequences. The court ruled in favor of Sophia's civil suit, ordering the company to pay substantial damages. In addition to the financial penalty, the airline was required to implement mandatory anti-discrimination training for all employees and revise its policies to ensure such incidents would not happen again. Outside the courtroom, Sophia stood with her father and legal team, addressing the crowd of reporters. "Today's verdict is a step toward accountability," she said. "But this fight is far from over. We must continue to challenge the systems that allow discrimination to persist." And the airline's reputation took a massive hit. Public trust plummeted as news of the trial spread and customers organized boycotts. Major investors withdrew their support, leading to a sharp decline in stock value. Facing immense pressure, the airline's CEO issued a public apology to Sophia and committed to overhauling internal policies. While some saw it as a genuine step forward, others criticized it as too little too late. Sophia's case became a turning point in the industry. Advocacy groups used the momentum to demand stricter regulations and accountability measures for airlines. For Sophia, the verdict was about more than personal justice. It was a victory for everyone who had ever been silenced or mistreated. Her story sparked a national conversation about racism in aviation and beyond, inspiring countless others to speak out. With her father's guidance, Sophia established a foundation aimed at promoting equity in transportation industries. "This isn't just about fighting what's wrong," she said in an interview. "It's about building what's right." Sophia Carter's courage and determination turned an act of discrimination into a catalyst for systemic change. The trial's outcome sent a powerful message. No one is above accountability, and justice will prevail for those brave enough to fight for it. In the days following the trial, Sophia Carter found herself reflecting on the journey she had undertaken. The humiliation and pain she endured on that plane were now a distant memory, replaced by a deep sense of purpose. What had started as a personal battle for dignity had evolved into a powerful stand against systemic injustice. Sophia recognized that her fight was not an isolated incident. It was part of a larger struggle faced by countless others who lacked the platform or resources to seek justice. "This isn't just my story," she said in a heartfelt interview. "It's the story of anyone who's ever been told they don't belong." With her father, Charles Carter, by her side, Sophia committed herself to creating meaningful change. Together they launched the Carter Initiative for Equity in Aviation, a foundation dedicated to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the aviation industry. The initiative focused on advocating for better policies, funding scholarships for underrepresented communities pursuing careers in aviation, and establishing programs to address implicit bias and racial discrimination. For the airline, the fallout was severe. Public trust in the company plummeted as news of the trial spread. The company faced boycotts, stock declines, and backlash from both consumers and stakeholders. The financial and reputational damage was undeniable. Under immense pressure, the airline announced sweeping reforms to address the issues highlighted by Sophia's case. These included mandatory racial sensitivity training for all employees from executives to frontline staff. Revised passenger rights policies to ensure fair treatment for all customers. New accountability measures for employees found guilty of discriminatory behavior. While the reforms were a step in the right direction, many questioned whether they were genuine or simply damage control. For Sophia, it was a reminder that systemic change required constant vigilance. Sophia's story struck a chord with millions, sparking a broader movement for accountability and justice. Across social media, hashtags like Justice for Sophia and Equity in Aviation remained trending for weeks. Activists and advocacy groups used her story to push for industry-wide reforms, and individuals who had faced similar discrimination began sharing their experiences. Sophia became a symbol of resilience and determination, using her platform to amplify voices that had long been ignored. "This is bigger than me," she said in a public address. "It's about creating a world where no one has to fight for the dignity they deserve." As the public rallied behind Sophia, her story inspired hope and action, proving that one person's courage could spark a movement capable of transforming entire systems. Sophia Carter's story is a powerful testament to the courage it takes to stand against injustice. Despite the humiliation and discrimination she endured, Sophia transformed her pain into purpose, becoming a beacon of hope and resilience. Her fight was not just for herself, but for everyone who has ever been silenced, marginalized, or treated unfairly because of systemic racism. Sophia's journey reminds us that discrimination isn't confined to isolated incidents. It's a deeply rooted issue that permeates industries and institutions. Addressing it requires bold actions, accountability, and a commitment to creating lasting change. Her victory wasn't just a personal triumph. It was a call to dismantle the systems that perpetuate inequality. Now, it's up to us to continue what Sophia started, share her story to raise awareness and spark conversations about systemic racism in our communities and workplaces. Support organizations like the Carter Initiative for Equity in Aviation and other groups working to promote inclusion and fairness across industries. Let's challenge ourselves to speak up when we witness injustice, to hold institutions accountable, and to build a world where dignity and respect are fundamental rights for everyone. Sophia Carter's story isn't just a reminder of what's wrong, it's a vision of what's possible when we stand together. As she showed us, the fight for equality is far from over, but each step forward brings us closer to the future we deserve. Together we stand against all forms of discrimination. Let's work toward a future where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. The journey starts now, and it starts with all of us.